You may have recently heard us talk about some auditions taking place in different parts of the country. In fact, Chicago just finished up earlier this week. I have Harry Blackstone Jr. on the line, and you're a busy man. You're flying all over these days, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. We've got to keep flying to stay one jump ahead of the sheriff.
I'll tell you, we were lucky enough to reach you, and I know that there are some auditions that are going to take place a little closer to home, so it's very apropos that we talk with you.
Which home, yours or mine?
Well, actually, mine. Home for you is California, isn't it?
It is at the moment, although, I was raised in Michigan, so I used to be in your part of the world more than I was out here.
And your father, I think, came from Chicago, didn't he?
Originally from Chicago. In fact, he was born at 33rd and Wentworth Street in Chicago, which is now an on-ramp of the Dan Ryan Expressway.
So you can't go visit the old homestead.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Nothing there but blacktop.
I think the last time we talked, you were over at the Assembly Hall in Champaign, and you told us, in fact, you showed us exactly how you did the floating light bulb trick on the radio. Do you remember that?
Oh, I did. That's right.
Gave it away.
Well, I didn't actually give it away, but when I showed it, if you didn't have visible radio, you really couldn't see how it was done, could you?
Matter of fact, no. That's one of the tricks of the trade. You never tell a trick, do you?
That's true.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because not to be stingy with the material, but rather to protect the audience's ability to continue enjoying the wonderment of magic. Once you know how it's done, you can appreciate it, but you can never really fully enjoy it.
Are there ever any puzzles that become tricks? I'm wondering where tricks come from. Are there people that sit around and say, I'm going to make a trick one day? Or
there are people who are known as trick makers, and people who are known as illusion technicians, illusion creators. Mm-hmm. And these people are the ones who create these wonderful concepts and scenarios that tend to become the amazing feats that the rest of us get known by.
Yeah.
There are names, for instance, in magic that are known only to the historians of magic, who are really the creative ones who built or conceived, or in many cases brought to fruition the concept of others, that unfortunately these are the unsung heroes of the business.
Yeah. There was a time when magicians tried to do, and maybe it depended on the magician, but there were some magicians that tried to do what you would call kind of a scary act.
Mm-hmm.
Yours really isn't like that, although it's mysterious, certainly, isn't it?
Well, yes, I try not to frighten people in the audience with the sort of things that we do. There are some moments that tend to set the short hairs on the back of your neck on edge. For instance, I saw my beautiful young assistant in half with a great big 36-inch electric buzzsaw, and that's done several times a week during our performances. I'll let you know a little inside story. When she first did that, she was 5'10". She's only 5'1" now.
So it doesn't work all the time.
It works all the time, but I just take out a little saw cut.
I understand. There were those magicians. I was talking with Orson Bean yesterday, and he said that he tried to do magic, sort of a comedy magic show. I don't know.
As a matter of fact, I've seen him do magic, and he is quite good.
He, I don't think he did exactly a Carl Ballantine routine.
No. It wasn't quite that buffoonish, but he was quite good with it. Also, Dick Cavett, another. I consider Cavett and Orson Bean to be sort of cut of the same cloth, although neither of them do.
And Johnny Carson, of course, did magic too, I guess.
Yes, he did. He was a very serious practitioner of magic, and still does quite a bit.
Yeah. One of the stories he was relaying, though, as a kid, he went to a theater to see a magician, and of course they would do what they'd call a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde kind of a thing. He pretended to drink some liquid. They put a piece of green gel over the light, and of course he put some fake teeth in his mouth, and then jumped off the stage into the audience and created hysteria. I don't think those kind of magicians are around anymore. Although it's
those were part of a now gone genre of magic shows that were called spook shows, and they used to have the Jekyll and Hyde character, and they would have the Frankenstein monster and other universal spook show type monsters that were licensed to these characters and individuals who would travel around the country and do their shows only at the stroke of midnight, and people would come and just scare the daylights out of everybody there. And really what was happening was that all the teenagers would come in and just wait for the dark seance, and then they'd make out in the balcony.
Another reason to do that.
No reason why not.
A lot of the magicians come from the Midwest, as you pointed out. Your father, Houdini, I believe, was Wisconsin?
Appleton, Wisconsin was his home, right? And Thurston was from Ohio. And many of the magicians have come from the heartland of America.
And there's an opportunity for some up-and-coming magicians to do some auditioning in Peoria on the 24th of this month. And maybe you can explain what this is all about.
Well, the folks of Nabisco Brands have invited us to help them with a project called Unlock the Magic of Oreo. Oreo cookies, as you're no doubt aware, is the largest selling cookie in America. And they figured that the nostalgia of, those childhood memories of the grown-ups and those that will become the childhood memories of the next generation's adulthood, those are all kind of associated with fun moments. And so they've tried to capture that kind of magic, and we've actually invited magicians to come and join us to help tell the Oreo story in supermarkets all across America. There will be 125 magicians that will be selected at the auditions. The auditions will be held in many, many cities around the United States, and there will then be performances done, I think it's about 2 or 3 times an hour for several hours a day in a different supermarket every day. So that I think collectively there will be 65,000 performances of magic.
I've heard in 8,000 different supermarkets. So
that's right, 8,000 supermarkets from coast to coast.
So that's going to be a request for a lot of magicians.
A lot of magicians, and then when the 125 or so are chosen for those jobs, then it will be then my good pleasure to go around, watch those young people perform. And I say young people, I mean anybody that's under 50 is still a young person to me.
Okay.
And as those young people will perform, they then will be selected to, one of them will be selected to join me on our international tour and perform with me during the 91-92 international season that we're doing.
You travel all over, in other words, all over the world.
We do. In fact, after you see my show, you'll understand why I have to travel as much as I do.
Keep the engine running.
You got it.
No, you put on a fine show. And
thank you.
And in fact, it's one of those shows you sit there and you scratch your head. How in the world does he do that? But like you're right, you're probably right. If we did know, it would take away a lot of the fun of the show.
It would.
Yeah.
And if you really want to know, and if there's somebody out there that says, "Oh, I can't stand not knowing," then go to your public library. Start to read the books. There are hundreds and hundreds of books that have been published on the secrets of magic.
Yeah.
And but do so with the understanding that you'll never again be able to enjoy it as a member of the lay audience.
Yeah. I was just kind of curious. There are some tricks that some magicians, I believe Houdini was one, who had certain skills that other people didn't even develop. I mean, if it was true, he could pick up needles with his eyelashes and all those kind of things.
Well, I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I do know that he could pick up pins with his toes.
And probably tie knots and string with his toes?
Could be, or untie them, which is even more important.
Yeah.
But those were not his greatest accomplishments. His greatest accomplishments were in making what is a fairly dry concept very, very entertaining. He was a great entertainer.
He was primarily
a great communicator with the audience.
Primarily an escape artist, I guess. Huh?
Almost exclusively.
Yeah.
I did not know what kind of magic he did, and I asked my dad, who knew Houdini rather well, and he said, as an escape artist, no one can hold a candle to him, but as a magician, he can't put his hands in Central Park without rustling the leaves.
I like that. I'll let you go here in just a moment, but I was curious, what was your father's most famous illusion?
My father's most famous? My goodness, let me think. There were so many for which he was known, the vanishing birdcage and the dancing handkerchief, the floating light bulb, which is part of my show still, the levitation of Princess Karnak, the famous mutiny at Sepoy routine in which he was strapped to the muzzle of a cannon. The cannon was fired, and the man who fires the cannon turns out to be my father.
Some great illusions.
Oh, there were some great illusions that he did. And to this day, they are still the subject of a great deal of discussion among the people. For instance, there was a routine that he did that was known as Duck In, where he would produce an entire flock of ducks on stage, which would all very dutifully, in single file, go into a little house that was on stage. And lo and behold, the house turned out to be nothing more than a little two-sided piece of wood, and when he'd pick up the wood, the little flat house arrangement like that, the ducks had all disappeared. And magicians talk about the method by which he did that, because it's one of the gutsiest pieces of magic that was ever seen on stage.
Okay. Did you actually have your father watch you when you started out?
Not intentionally. I was not going to be in magic at all, and I was kind of but coerced into doing magic as part of my master's thesis when I was at the University of Texas. And unbeknownst to me, the chairman of my committee had called my father and said, well, your boy is going to do his full evening magic show. Are you going to be here? And my dad showed up without letting me know he was going to be there. And I was at the auditorium in Austin, Texas. Following the show, he did a little whistle where he would put his two little fingers into his mouth and whistle like he did when I was a child and would be running off in train stations and hotels and theaters around the country. He'd whistle like that and call me. When I finished the show, he gave a whistle like that from the back of the theater, and I swear it was like somebody had put a block of ice right into the middle of my back. Such a chill went up because it was the first time he had ever seen me perform. And as a result of that performance, I at least had the aplomb to introduce him to the audience and say, you know, the man responsible for what I and many other magicians have done and will do over the years to come is here in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, my father, Harry Blackstone. He came up on stage to the applause of the audience and proceeded to do 30 minutes. At the end of that time, the show was over, and the following day, the critique for my show was on, and the cover note from my committee chairman was, you get a C, but your other act gets an A+.
He upstaged you.
Oh, yeah. And it was a great lesson to learn, though, and just what to do. And the critique I got from him was better than the critique I had gotten from all the academicians.
Yeah. There again, when you talk about comedians or vaudeville acts, they had a chance to really polish those acts over the years.
Exactly.
I imagine the same was true of magic.
Sure.
And you do enough traveling around yourself. I'm sure you've gotten a whole lot better over these years, too.
Well, you know, that's why I'm so anxious to have these young people do the auditions for an Oreo, because once they get the opportunity to get in there and really hone their communicating skills, because they're going to be right out in the aisles, right out on the floor in the supermarkets, not on a stage, not in a theater somewhere, but on a one-on-one basis with people. Maybe there'll be 20 or 30 around for each of the shows, and then between shows they'll get a chance to talk to people. There's no better training ground than that.
Yeah. When will we have an opportunity to see Harry Blackstone perform in Illinois?
Well, we'll be in Chicago later this year. We have had an offer to bring our big full evening Christmas show into Chicago, and we'll be in one of the major theaters there. And when that's finalized and the contracts are all signed and the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, then we'll give you a holler, Ken, and let you tell all your friends in your area when and where it'll be.
Okay.
That's fair enough. In the meantime, look for us on television. We're on almost every day on public broadcasting in a show called Square One Television, where I teach magic in the guise of mathematics, or actually I teach mathematics in the guise of magic, but don't let the young people know that. And then we do a lot of other shows. I was just on NBC last Monday, and we're going to have additional shows that are coming up all through this year.
Mm-hmm. I think it's neat that you're doing stuff to get kids interested in math. I just heard some statistic, I think it was last week, saying that we're turning out math majors at an all-time low.
Well, we're going to do our utmost to help change that.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate to have a house full of young people that are my children, and one of them is a third-year senior in engineering, a math major. Not a third-year student, a third-year senior. It's our third chance to try to graduate from Cal Poly, and looks like she's going to do that this year. And my youngest, who is 11, just was awarded third place in the California State Science Fair.
Terrific.
And so she's in science and mathematics as well. And this is something we really need. If we're going to compete in the world market in this next century, we're going to have to start training our young people today in math and science and languages.
Exactly. And there is something neat about science, too, because it's almost like magic, seeing some of these experiments take place.
Well, a lot of times they're much less understandable than magic is.
Yeah, could be. Yeah. Harry, I won't take any more of your time now, but I want to thank you for being with us.
It's been our pleasure.
We'll invite people to audition in Peoria on April 24th. And
I want to see you there as well, because when you come to the auditions, you can have a chance to do that, and more importantly, you'll get a package of Oreo cookies.
Ooh, that's even better. More incentive. Harry Blackstone, Jr., thank you very much.
My pleasure.